In Psalm 98, verse 4, the psalmist writes these words: "Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth, and burst into jubilant song with music." As long as I can remember in my journey of faith, worship times have always been a place where I feel like I have encountered God in a powerful way. Many times in worship moments when I'm joined together with my brothers and sisters, I have these senses that we are experiencing what the Celtics used to call the thin places, the places where heaven and earth are close to becoming one. In week 2 of this series, Revival Calls, where we are looking at key markers or key distinctives of revival and really what revival is calling us to. What I want to focus in on here today is the calling of passionate worship. Now, once again, when I begin to study a lot of the revivals of the past, I begin to see these things that were key distinctives or markers of these great moves of God. And we talked about last week the importance of prayer, how much many revivals were preceded by prayer. But another key distinctive is that of worship, that of passionate worship. G. Campbell Morgan, when he went to visit the Welsh revival, he came away with just such an awestruck sense of the worship that was happening there in Wales. He made statements like, when the Welsh people sing, they sing the words like men who believe them. They're not just singing words that are rhetoric or just out of religious duty, but he said there was this sense of passion and this exuberance in their singing. He was completely overwhelmed by the power of it, that they weren't even reading from the hymn books. There really weren't lyrics present, but the people were singing in complete unison. I talked about last week about the Asbury revival that I went to, and the first day I showed up, I went up on the balcony, and I just like to observe when I go to things like that and see how the Spirit is moving. And I got up there on the balcony and I just began to look over at the congregation and then look at the stage. And I got to be honest, it was very underwhelming. The musicians on the stage were okay. The singers were okay. The first thing I noticed is there were no lyrics on the screen. There were no hymn books. The sound system was really not good. The EQ was not good. And I sat there as a leader, as a pastor, and kicked into that kind of micromanagement mode where I thought, if they would just bring the guitar up a bit here. If they just had a rhythm section to help accompany them, then this place would really come unglued. And as I sat there, it didn't take long for me to realize that the worship that was happening in the room had very little to do with what was happening on the stage. In fact, the worship leaders on the stage of the Asbury outpouring were just facilitators, and really the powerful worshipful moments came as it began to crescendo and arise out of the congregation. That kind of wave after wave of God's presence would show up as the congregation would just lift their voice and begin to sing with exuberant passion and zeal. And the team was just there to help facilitate those moments. It was an amazing experience for me to see that. So in that moment, I was reminded of a great quote by the legendary worship leader Graham Kendrick, where he said this: "Don't come to church to worship, come to church worshiping." You see, when we come together congregationally, we're not coming just to do something that hopefully we haven't done all week. And I could tell in that moment in Asbury, as I was experiencing that these people were pouring out their hearts, and they were singing with such zeal and passion because they were people of worship. They had cultivated a lifestyle of worship in their lives, and now they were coming together with their brothers and sisters to join in unison, to join in song in that congregational moment. So something I'm learning, and it's something I'm talking to our own team about a lot, is the importance of congregational singing. That worship has to be more than just what is happening on the stage. Worship has to be something that we see the Spirit moving amongst our congregation. And there's a bit of an ebb and flow. There's a give and take. And the leaders are there to help keep us in tune, help keep us on time. But they're not there to put on a concert. They're not there to put on a show. And this is important in revival callings, because in every great revival, there's a surge of great worship and passion and worship, but there's also a lessening of a man. There's a lessening of even leaders in the sense of everyone being focused on them. And there's a sense that we're focused on Jesus and his finished work, and we're focused on what the Spirit does. And I think congregational singing, congregational worship is an incredible place for that. And so some keys that I've been talking about a lot with our own congregation, and something that I want to just give us here today. You see, when we sing congregationally, we are worshiping with both our heads and our hearts. When we sing congregation, we're singing in unison our doctrine, our theology, of the goodness of God, or the faithfulness of God. But there's something that happens when we sing congregationally that it moves our hearts. Secondly, when we sing congregationally, we are worshiping in collective unity with our brothers and sisters. And right from Acts 2 on, we see this in great outpourings of the Spirit. Unity is a key marker of revival history. That when we sing congregationally, it's not just about what the Spirit is doing in me, but it's also what the Spirit is doing in my brothers and sisters. And thirdly, when we sing congregationally, we not only experience the moving of the Holy Spirit in our lives, but we also get to see how the Spirit is at work in the collective body together. So worship is a reflection of heaven. I believe worship is a reflection of eternity. And revival orients us towards that which is eternal, and passionate worship is a key to that reorientation. So I encourage you, let worship arise in your heart in this season that the wind is blowing. If you're a worship leader, if you're a pastor, create spaces for the congregation to sing congregation. That means the songs need to be familiar. They need to be timeless. And that means at times the music needs to die down so that the voices would erupt. And I promise when you hear those voices erupting and singing in unison, those quickly become thin places, the place where heaven and earth become one.